I'm a scientist. I was abroad for over 20 years. To give you an example, I worked on the world's first internet bank. I worked on video on demand. I worked with smart cards. And my last project was radio frequency identification. So I worked on several leading edge projects. And while I was doing those, what I realized is the projects that I worked on took a minimum of 10 years to get into a university. Forget a school, correct? So it was that far off. And all my learning and the learning of my fellow scientists was all based on research. We learned through research. And my curiosity was, why not have a learning space where children learn through research? So today, PhD is the last degree we do. While previously the children are inundated with facts and then they do the research. And by the time they do PhD, their vision has been narrowed down significantly by the education system. So I wanted to break that trend. So today, children start learning with facts and end in research. And I thought, what if we flip it around? Where they start learning with research and end in facts. Okay. To let you know, I still do research. My 3 topics of research are neuroplasticity, biomimicry, and quantum mechanics. Neuroplasticity believes that our brains are flexible. They are not hardwired, as conventional neuroscience believed. And one of the purposes of starting this learning space was based on neuroplasticity. In the current system, I won't go into the details because of the paucity of time, but every human child is born with all the nerve cells it will need for its entire life. That is 200 billion nerve cells. But unlike most other young ones in the animal kingdom, the human child, as you all know, has the least development of brain cells. And that is why the human child has to be taken care of by parents and its environment for a much longer time than the young ones of other animals. And at the age of 10, they measured, you can measure the number of brain cells based on children who have died at birth. So how many brain cells are there? And then based on all the period, they have noticed that by the time the child is 10 in today's space, only 100 billion nerve cells remain, which means we lose 50% of our nerve cells. Then they have taken number of brain cells in a 44-year-old and all that stuff, and they are at 100 billion, more or less, close by. So my focus has been that we need to create a learning space where we increase the number of brain cells that are retained. Instead of losing 50, and we lose 50% of the brain cells because of lack of stimuli. Right? Either use them or lose them. That is what it is. And that has been my curiosity as well. And the reason that is happening is because we are not letting the children think on their own. We are not giving our children opportunities to explore their curiosity. We are making the children answer our curiosity. And the unfortunate part is we are not going to be alive when our children are much grown up. So what right do we have to dictate our terms of learning on these children who are going to be alive in a different era? Correct? And to this, I will quote Rabindranath Tagore, who started Shantiniketan. He said, a person who plants trees knowing fully well that he will not be around to sit under the shade of those trees has begun to understand the meaning of life. Okay? Today, people just want very quick results. And by doing this, we are doing a great disservice to our children. Okay? So what does this mean? So I'm trying to create a space, it's called EBEL, which is an acronym for Experience-Based Holistic Learning Environment. It's all experience. It's learning by doing. And there are various sayings to that effect, but the key thing is what you learn by doing you will not forget. Correct? What you listen to, you could forget. What you see, you could forget. But what you have learned by doing, you will not forget. And in today's learning space, mistakes are punished. Okay? Not knowing that mistakes are an opportunity for learning. So we are killing the creativity that comes from making mistakes and learning from our mistakes. Today in the schools, like I was volunteering in one school, I do volunteer in the local government schools. I teach them English, I try to teach them English. And these were kids in the 7th standard. In 7th standard, kids cannot write capital ABCD, small ABCD in a 4-line book. Okay, so and then I was giving them homework, I was checking them. And I saw some pages were very neatly cut in their book. So I asked them, what is it? He said, we don't know, you ask our teacher. He has cut the pages. So I asked the teacher. He said, they had made a mistake on those pages. So I cut those pages out so that when the supervisor comes to check, he will not see their mistakes. Okay. There is a saying which I really like, which is, one who does not make mistakes is taking instructions from someone who does. Okay. There's no other way. So in our learning space, I have this concept called forgiving design, which means everybody makes mistakes. Okay? And the one who does more makes more mistakes. And we have to create that space where they will learn through mistakes. And in nature, if you see, no two leaves of the same tree are similar. We are all different. Our ability to learn is different. And we have to create a space where children's uniqueness is celebrated instead of being punished. All kids today are given the same examination. So in the space that I'm trying to create, there will be no textbooks, which means standardized textbooks. So it's learning through projects, learning by doing. And once the kids learn, they do the documentation as per their terms. So they can do it in text, they can do it in photographs, they can do it in images, they can do it in video. But the instruction to them is you have to document it in such a way that another person can read or listen to the documentation or view the documentation and do exactly what you did. They can do it. The focus is on doing. And then that documentation that they do becomes their textbook. So in this case, every child has a different textbook as per the abilities of their learning and as per their desire to help others learn the same thing. It's different from current system. Correct? Next, I ask people about the Rubik's Cube. Everybody knows the Rubik's Cube. The solved Rubik's Cube is the cube which has got all 6 sides of the same color. Each side the same color. Okay? And the world champion can get to that in 10 seconds. Okay? But we are not born like that, finished cube. We are all born unique. We are all born different. Like the leaves on the same tree are also different. And our system is trying to eliminate those differences. The very uniqueness that we are born with is being destroyed by the system. And my goal is to preserve the uniqueness and preserve those differences. So I ask the question to that world champion. Give a Rubik's Cube to a person from the audience. Let him jumble it up, or her jumble it up the way she wants. Then give that world champion the solved Rubik's Cube, and ask that person to get from the solved Rubik's Cube to the jumbled one that the audience gave. It won't be able to be done. That is because today everybody is looking for simple answers. Correct? While in life everything is different. Correct? So now I am going to ask the audience here a question. Okay, I have a solar water heater. In which direction should it face? Answer. Water heater. Okay, there are only 4 directions. I need. If it is west, it will only get good sunlight for second half of the day. So it has to face a direction where it will get maximum sunlight. South, why? So for that the answer lies, for India, it is South. It is not true worldwide. Okay. So what line on the surface of the earth is the hottest spot on the planet? What line? Equator. Equator. India is in the northern hemisphere. So the equator is to our south. Okay. That is why the solar water heater has to face south. It has to face the hottest spot on the planet. Now in today's textbooks, here in India, it will say your solar water heater should face south without giving an explanation why it should face south, because the answer does not lie in physics, the answer lies in geography. And today, every child has a separate geography class and a separate physics class. And they two can't be there. So we are trying to create a space where children learn by doing and they do projects, correct? And in those projects, we don't segregate the project by subject, correct? Also, the children are for 50 minutes in one class for mathematics, 50 minutes in another class for chemistry, and 50 minutes in another class for physics, 50 minutes for English. Now, the child is forced to learn different topics in a single day. Yet the teacher only teaches one topic. Correct? Ask the English teacher to teach physics. So when the adults can't do something themselves, who are we to dictate those terms on the child who is going to live in a different era? Correct? So that's why it's project-based learning, and all the solutions come from that. So I'm just trying to explain the shortcomings of current system and why I am so keen on establishing this new opportunity for learning. I will ask, okay, so today if you see, in all entrance examinations, there are multiple choice questions, correct? In a multiple choice question, can there be more than one right answer? Yes. No. In the way the question paper is designed, it cannot have more than one right answer because the answer sheets are checked by a computer, not by a human being. Correct? So you have to darken one circle, and that if there's more than one circle darkened in that, it will give you 0. If it was having more than one answer, the computer cannot check it. Okay? So these multiple choice questions have one right answer only. That is the way the entire answer paper is designed. And that is what is taught in school today. That for things there is only one right answer, while in life there's more than one right answer. Correct? So I'll ask you again. As I said, I want things to be learned experientially. So clasp your hand. Clasp your hand, everybody. Okay? Some of you have your left thumb over right. Some of you have your right thumb over left. Correct? Now unclasp your hand and clasp it again, but in the reverse. If your left was over right, then make it right over left. If your right was over left, then make it left over right. Okay? Does it feel different? Correct? Is it wrong? No. But in today's learning system, if you told this to a child, if the child was in a school, only if the teacher was left over right, they say, this is the only right answer. And we are destroying the creativity of children. There are so many right answers. Correct? So this is the environment we are trying to create, where there is plurality of answers. In nature, correct? There are so many right answers. Now today, there is a significant emphasis on perfection. You have to be perfect. Okay? Yet, if nature was perfect, evolution would stop. Because once you are perfect, there is no room for improvement. Correct? It's perfect. It's finished. Okay? Nature itself is getting better because of the abilities to get better. Now, at the same time, it doesn't mean that because things are not perfect, you don't strive for perfection. Okay? So here I have this thing called, you have to do your best to get better. You don't do your best to become the best. Because today somebody is running the 100 meters in 10 seconds. Tomorrow somebody is running it in 9.9. Correct? You say, no, 10 seconds is the thing. Then there is no more competition. And I don't want to call it competition. That is the other thing. This obsession with competition. Okay? Different kids are different. Now, when you say competition, you are trying to judge them by the same yardstick. That is an error. How can you judge different people by the same yardstick, right? That is, there's a saying, right? That if you judge an animal by the way it can climb a tree, the fish would think it's a duffer, right? So those are the things. We have to leave the field open. And the environment that we are trying to create is an environment where we want our children to be creative problem solvers. Okay? And the thought process here is, if you can solve problems, that child will never go hungry. Because there are enough problems in the world to be solved. And there are enough opportunities to evolve into a better solution. Correct? So that is the whole thought process in this thing. So the cornerstone of our learning space is called forgiving design. Correct? Everybody makes mistakes, but mistakes are not to be punished. They are to be looked at as an opportunity for improvement. Okay? Next is what we call go with the flow. Okay? So today, if you see both in your learning space and in your working space, deadlines. I want this thing tomorrow. I want this thing by the end of the week. Now, I'm calling it to move from race to pace. Okay, everything has a pace. Now, yeah, when you're running 100 meters, you can do 10 seconds, you can do 9.9 and all those things. That's a race. You can take a car and make it a faster car and so on. But in nature, there is no race. And I will give the example of a child. Once the child is conceived, it takes 9 months for the baby to be born, normally. You can't do it in 4 months. That is nature. It takes its time. And you can't say we are so advanced that we will finish it in 4 months. And that is the whole thing, right? You plant a mango tree. It cannot give you mangoes in 4 days. It takes 4 years for the first mango to grow. And that is why nature is so important. So I'm setting this learning space in the middle of nature. Okay? That's why my interest in biomimicry. Biomimicry is the concept where we learn through nature and apply that for problem solving in our space. Okay? A very good example here is the bullet train in Japan. The bullet train in Japan, when they were going through tunnels, they were creating a huge blast sound. And the people who are living around the tunnels, they complained, we can't sleep at night. If you want, you can run the trains only during the day. Correct? But if you are running these trains for long distances, there's only so much that you can cover. So they gave this thing to a researcher. He was also an ornithologist. Ornithologist is a person who observes birds. That was his hobby. And so he tried to observe the kingfisher bird. The kingfisher bird, when it dives into the water to catch the fish, it creates minimal splash of water. So he changed the design of the engine to mimic the kingfisher bird's beak. Okay? And as a result, the sound that was there reduced. Also, the efficiency of the train increased by 15%. That's significant. And that is biomimicry. Right? Learning with nature. So we want to create a space where kids learn along with nature. Very simple thing. How does the water from the tip of the root reach to the tip of the tree? Correct? There are things known as capillary action. There is surface tension. These are all properties of water, which children learn in school, in physics. But you don't know how it is applied. Correct? And that can only happen through project-based learning. So that is how we do. And coming back to go with the flow, we plan things. Because I'm also a project manager in addition to being a scientist. Because my thing is not pure science. I want to apply what is done. That is why this space is there. And we have a saying that by failing to plan, one is planning to fail. So we plan. But it's not a deadline, it's a lifeline. So we want to shift from deadlines to lifelines. That is very important. So that our children can stay alive. Otherwise, they will all die with all these concepts that are there. And there, once we do this, these two concepts, which we say, forgiving design and go with the flow. The third one is we want to shift our children from fear to passion. Okay. Today, everybody is there in a state of fear, which is saying, if I don't do this, what will happen? Correct? And if I do this, what will happen? There is a fear. And as a result, most kids are trying not to do things instead of doing things. We have to encourage them to do things at that level. Now, one of the most important things for passion is different kids have different innate abilities that are there. And that is where I use this concept of OLA, O-L-L-A. How did we learn our first language when we were about 2 years old? Which is OLA, O-L-L-A, observe, listen, learn and apply. The children didn't go to school, we didn't go to school, we didn't attend any tuition class, we didn't see a YouTube video, anything, we just learned it on our own. Then why can't we learn this thing for the rest of our life the same way? So for this learning space, we have set up some guidelines. We will take children from the age of 4. Okay, why 4? Because we want the children to be able to take care of their food so that they can eat by themselves, which is typically around that age. And they should be able to manage the toilet and bath on their own. We don't have staff to take care of all those things. So they're pretty much independent by the age of 4. And it is up to 16 years. By the age of 16, we want the kids to be self-sufficient in learning. Correct? Now, one of my inspirations, why I wanted to become a scientist, is when I was around 10 years old, I read about Thomas Alva Edison. And I just said, that is what I want to be. To the extent that Thomas Edison used to stay awake till 2 in the morning by drinking coffee. So I also started drinking coffee. Right? All those things are there. But that's what I wanted to become. I wanted to become a scientist. But Thomas Edison was kicked out of school in 4th standard. Right? If you look at some of the most creative minds are those that have scorned formal education. Right? In today's world, you look at Elon Musk. He skipped university. You look at Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook. He also skipped Harvard. You look at Bill Gates. He left Harvard. There are several other people who have left formal education. And the sad part is, if they had been into formal education and they had completed their formal education, all the innovation that they have been up to would not have been done. Correct? So we need to create a space where children can learn through informal education to the best of their abilities. Correct? I like to give this 2 quotes. One is by Franklin Roosevelt, who was the president of America during the Second World War. He said, instead of building a future for our youth, we should focus on building our youth for the future. Today, everybody is trying to build a future for our youth. We will do artificial intelligence, we will do this, we will do that. Who are we to decide on what they are going to do when we are not going to be alive? Let them decide their future. We don't have a right to decide their future. And that is the space we are trying to create. Correct? That is one. Second is the Renaissance sculptor, Michelangelo. Okay? So Michelangelo was asked, how do you create this beautiful, lifelike sculptures from one single rock of marble? Okay, so his response was, I don't. The sculpture, the masterpiece is already there in that rock. I only take away the rock that does not belong to the masterpiece. Okay. And in today's learning space, we are doing the reverse. Every child is born a masterpiece. And then we put, this dance and music and tuition class and school and all that stuff. And we turn it into a rock. That has to change. You have to let the masterpiece remain a masterpiece. So here I quote. This is based on a quote by Arthur C. Clarke, who's a famous fiction scientist. He said, on my epitaph and on my tombstone, it should be written, here lies Arthur C. Clarke, a child who never grew up. Okay, and Arthur C. Clarke is the one who, as science fiction, wrote about communication satellites before communication satellites were even mainstream. Right? He wrote about calls on the internet before internet was used for calling, for making calls, which we do on WhatsApp and so on nowadays. Right? So here I say, every child is born a genius. Okay? The challenge is to let the genius remain a child and never let it grow up. Today everything is grow up. What are you going to do? The curiosity is there in the child, not in the grown-up. And that is our challenge, to let that person remain a child. I tell people, I'm a child. And I would like to stay a child. So people ask me, I have this farm at Sapna Ranch. It is in the forest. So they ask me, don't you get bored? I tell them, you have no idea. I'm having the time of my life. There is nobody to tell me, don't do this and don't do that. I do whatever I want. And in many projects, I fail. But I don't see them as failure. I see them as opportunities for learning. Right? Before coming to Sapna Ranch, I have never worked with bamboo. I started building all my structures in bamboo. Correct? I built a HYPAR, which is known as a hyperbolic paraboloid. It's a different structure. Even architects that have come to my farm can't figure out how this structure was built. So I tell them, make a model. That is how they understand it. Correct? I have a geodesic dome. Geodesic dome was patented by Buckminster Fuller from California. So we built that. And I have one of India's few geothermals, which is a natural air conditioner. Now, we had a cyclonic storm in 2020. And during those times, I had 120 kilometer per hour winds. At that time, all my structures stood. So, through research, it's not just doing research, it's not just talking, but it is also applying what we have learned. That is where I would like to give a break at this time. And if you have any questions, you can ask me.
Okay. So it was so wonderful to listen and listen to your journey so far. I'm curious to understand the moment when you said you were a scientist before and then you shifted to India, you started this experimental place. I wanted to understand the moment or the challenges or the reason which are behind this action that you have taken in your life. What was the story behind this?
So I was doing pretty well in my consulting. So I was not an employee of any company. I was doing the consulting myself. And I chose the projects. So there were some projects where I actually chose a lower consultancy rate because my focus was to learn. That is my focus. Right? To give you an idea, I attended the Internet and Society Conference at Harvard in 1998. And I was asked to join a lecture circuit. And I refused. Okay. The salary and all those things, consultancy rates were pretty good. But by talking, I'm not learning anything. I'm just sharing what has been there and just through talking, not even doing certain things. So that was important. Second is I like mentoring. I have mentored a lot of people. Every time I consulted, I told that company that they need to give me 2 people to shadow me. So that when I leave that organization after finishing my project, they have at least 2 people trained on what was done. And the next time they need to do something like that, they don't have to call me. Because I'm a creative person. I'll get bored easily. I don't like to do the same thing. So that is very important. And I knew that I wanted to do this sort of a thing, which I could have done abroad. But there, for everybody, I think at least for me, there is an attachment to the country you were raised in. And there comes a sort of gratitude that this space created for you, and you want to give back something. I call it give forward something. So it was a given that I would start this at some point in time. And I was 45 when I took the decision to come back. Because then again, I don't have that much time. I wanted to give it at least 20 years to get this whole thing going. So at 45, I said, okay, I have enough of these things. And then I came back, and then I started looking for land. And I came with the vision that people in the villages would welcome me. And it has been totally the opposite. Correct? When I came back, I started volunteering in local schools. Also, I came with a very small vision. I just wanted to start an orphanage for 30 kids. And being abroad, the public learning system is very good. Public infrastructure is very good. Transport system is very good. And when I came back here, I saw none of these are good. Like I told you, my experience in teaching and government schools where they didn't know how to write ABCD in 4-line books and so on. And nor did I get any cooperation from the teachers, because the teachers felt threatened. Correct? And I told them, I am not going to be there after 1 year. You learn whatever you want from me in 1 year. They refused to sit in my class. Correct? Their own kids are going to English medium schools, these teachers. They are earning a very good salary. But like my friend, his wife is an MPhil. She teaches in a private school in Mumbai. Okay? She has a certain salary. I'm not giving the number because then it skews the whole thing. These teachers in the government schools, they were earning 4 times her salary and knowing maybe 10% of what she knows. Correct? So that disillusioned me. And then I said, there's no point starting an orphanage. Let me open it up to the general public. I held a workshop I'd already moved to this farm setting in the forest in 2010. In 2014, I held my first workshop. And for that, I had 11 kids and their 6 moms and 6 other people, totally 23 people, which is when I first shared my vision of this experience-based holistic learning environment. And I told them it is going to be residential. Also, I knew it has to be residential because you can't have the kids learn something during the day and then go back home and totally skew it out. So when I told them that it has to be residential, all the 6 moms were homeschooling their kids. Not one kid was going to a regular school. It was a 3-week workshop. I had nothing on my farm other than all these things to explore. I thought they would leave in 2 days. Okay, but after 3 weeks, the kids were crying. They said, we want to stay. That is the amount of fun they had. And the other thing the moms told me is, if you build this space, we want to live there. So then this vision, first of all, the kids proved that this vision is correct, where they are led to explore and so on. And the kids were working with drills and screwdrivers and building structures over there. That's when we built the initial phase of the geodesic dome. And that was there. But also when they said that they want to live there, the whole thing grew from just a learning space into a community. Correct? Because one of the questions in my mind was, I do not want to keep the children away from their parents. Because that is also one part of the learning, social learning. And this sort of solved the problem. So in 2014, that vision grew from only a learning space to a community which has the learning space as its center. So that is how that whole thing came up. And it has been tough. Okay, going through buying the land and trying to get things done. We have not yet been able to manage to start the learning space officially because you need the land and various things to start it. And then COVID came, so it has been delayed by 3 years. Hopefully, we will start this learning space next year. So until then, there are kids coming all the time, in and out. And most of the people at Sapna Ranch who come are international volunteers. So I've had more than 300 volunteers from 40 countries who have come, who who have learned what is going on there. And one of the things that we have on the farm is self-sufficiency. There are no servants on the farm. So we do all the cooking, cleaning, washing, and the building and construction. We do 3 types of projects right now. One is organic farming, then eco-sustainable construction. So we do everything in bamboo and alternate energy. So I built a vertical axis wind turbine. We have done a geothermal, which is like an air conditioner that works from the cooling effect of the beneath the earth. Correct? We have implemented a parabolic solar cooker, which we built ourselves. At the same time, if there is something in the market, then we will use it. Correct? So we have taken from the market a solar water heater, about the question that I asked. And the benefit there is that those solar water heaters, in order to get the subsidies from the government, they have to go through a certification. And we don't have the bandwidth to build things ourselves and go through the certification process to get the benefits of the subsidy. Correct? Same way, we have used photovoltaic cells, so PV-based solar cells. Okay? These things are going on constantly. We still have a project in mind to do biogas and biogas-based energy generation, because the wind turbine will only provide when the wind is there energy. The photovoltaic cell will only provide energy when the sunlight is enough. But the biogas runs all through the year, correct? The biogas has 3 benefits. One is it gives you cooking gas. Okay, the same gas can be used to run a generator. There are enough of them today. And the output, the slurry from the biogas digester, is manure. Correct? So it meets all the requirements, and that is our long-term goal. On my farm, there are no mirrors, no clocks, okay, and there's no television. Okay? So no mirrors, because I say we don't care how you look on the outside, we only care how you look on the inside. Correct? And no clocks, because as I said, we are moving to a pace. Whatever is the pace of nature, okay, if the sun is right overhead, it's noon time, correct? So you wake up with the sun, you can even go to bed with the sun. On my farm, there are no lights outside the living structures. So if you want to go outside the living structures, you have to use a torch. Okay? But inside the living structure, so the reason being that inside the living structure, there are lights, correct? We say there is no air pollution in our place, because it's in the forest. There is no water pollution, because I have a bore well. Okay? And I have tested the water from my bore well. If you put a litmus paper, it will turn blue, which means that the water is alkaline. Right? So it's very good. It goes through 100 feet of basalt rock, so you can't get a purer water. And as I said, the more than 300 volunteers from 40 countries that have been to my farm have had that water. I don't have a water filtration system. And none of them has fallen ill. And many of them have said, this is the tastiest water they have got. Correct? So no water pollution, no air pollution, no noise pollution in the forest. You only get to listen to birds and so on. Okay? And next is no light pollution, because there is no light outside the living premises. And as a result, you get to see the most pristine night sky you will ever get.
Do you have any favorite politicians? And do you think politics is important to understand education?
Yes. Okay, so here I have this concept called statesman. Statespeople, you can call it. So I would say Abraham Lincoln was a statesman. Correct? He was there. There have been several other people. I don't want to put some Indian names in there because it will cause some controversy at that level. But these were people who were interested in improving the lives of humanity. So governance is important, correct? And the community that we are starting, as I mentioned previously, the learning space, has 3 pillars. The pillars are learning, number 1, livelihood, because if you can't make a livelihood, you cannot sustain, correct? And number 3 is governance. For our governance model, we have chosen a concept called sociocracy, which is fairly new. Okay? In democracy, 51% can decide the decision, can make the decision. 49, correct? While in sociocracy, you need consensus, correct? 100%. Okay. So the way it is done is that you ask questions to the people. There's a model. But in this case, there are some people who may not agree with what is there. But you put the guidelines in such a way, they said, okay, for example, we have said in our learning space in this community, no smoking, okay, no alcohol, no drugs. Very clear. Okay. In the common spaces. Now, there are some people who are smokers, correct? But in everything else, they are pretty good. Okay. So the question came up and they said, what should we do? I want to become a member of the community, but I'm a smoker. So we said, see, we have said, like even at Sapna Ranch now, where I am, the same rules apply. So if somebody is a smoker, they can go outside the gate, they can smoke and they can come in. But inside the premises, you will not smoke. Correct? So we put those guidelines over there is in the public spaces, because again, people are living in their homes and so on. What you do inside your house is your personal matter. We are not a policeman. But when you're outside the house, when you're in the public space, public domain, these three rules apply. And the people said, yes, I can live with that. I don't agree with it, but I can live with that. So that is what sociocracy is you may not agree with it, but you are willing to live with it. So that is how the governance is happening. And yes, we need to do the governance. I'll give an example. When I was teaching in these government schools, right, first standard book had, I think it had H.W. Longfellow's Burning the Midnight Oil in first standard, correct? And that entire syllabus and the textbooks were designed by professors from Mumbai University who had very good intentions. Their intention was our village kids should be on par with the kids from the city. Okay? But none of these professors had ever been to a village school, ever met these children from the village, and ever assessed what would be of benefit to this child, where their child is, and how do we take their child from where the child is to where it needs to be. Nobody did that. They just sat in their ivory towers and then designed the whole system. So this is important. So that's where I do not want to become a policymaker. And most of the research, as I said, that we did was not mainstream until a few years or maybe decades later. So I am more into the grassroots starting up of development. Okay? I have worked with certain companies, very advanced companies. So I was a consultant to Schlumberger Research Center. Prior to that, I was a consultant to AT&T Bell Labs, which is one of the leading research institutions in the world. And they had this concept called organic growth. Okay? So you don't decide the rules. Typically management who has no clue of what is happening at the ground are making the rules and then pushing it to the ground, not knowing that the ground is not ready for it. Correct? So what I am trying to stress here is we need to start at the grassroots, and what works, let it shift by itself up. And then, yes, it is slow. This process is slow. But in that process, lot of different things get tried out. Well, if you make a policy, then everybody is just following that policy, and it may or may not be right. And definitely we know, as I said, plurality. There are so many right things. Let all those right things percolate up. So that is the whole process. So I have this allergy to the current level of politics. Mainly because today politics has become a way of emphasizing the thoughts and ideas of the elite class. Correct? A politician who may not have any idea of what is right for the people is making a decision out of ignorance rather than trying to look into what will work. Having said that, this is not generally true. Okay? So we are saying there are exceptions, but they are exceptions. They are not the rule. So in our community, we have specifically said that we want to stay away from politics. We want to stay away from religion, because all religions are good. We can't say that this one religion is good and one religion is bad. Correct? Same way in political parties, every political party has a nice person with nice thoughts and so on. So we cannot sort of ostracize or judge a party by itself. We need to start judging people. Correct? And it does not work because of this majority concept. So in our system, we have tried to stay away from the current political environment. Religion, caste, gender, these sort of things which bring in discrimination.
So, listening to your ideas on education, I am curious to understand कि अगर हमें इंडिया जैसे एक इतने बड़े देश में अगर कुछ एडुकेशन को लेके मास एडुकेशन पब्लिक एडुकेशन को लेके कुछ करना है, इफ़ यू वांट टू डू समथिंग, then how we will do it, from where we can start? Because I mean the system is not working, the politics is not something where we can rely on, the teachers are not that much equipped or educated to deliver the right thing, then from where and how we can start?
So it will have to start from grounds up, correct? Number one. Number two, we will have to give it time to go. And one of my favorite speeches is the speech given by John Kennedy, during his inaugural address when he took over office in, I think, 1961, if I'm not mistaken. He said, what this administration is planning to do may not be completed in 100 days or a year or in the lifetime of this administration or in 1,000 years. But let us begin. Starting is more important. Correct? So, as I said, I'm a marathon runner. I have run 9 marathons. Correct? How do you run a marathon? One step at a time. Correct? Again, the Chinese saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. So, that is my personal philosophy. Yeah, it's not practical for many people, but we have to start. Correct? This, and as I said, nature is all based on evolution, while humanity is trying to build a revolution. And that is what revolution does. It hurts more than it helps. Correct? I have this another concept called impact and momentum. Okay? People are looking for impact. While what we should be looking at is momentum. It's a physics concept. Right? A bullet has impact. It's very fast. It kills. While moving a mountain has momentum. And it is very difficult to a mountain that has started moving. So getting this mountain of this different ways of learning which are more conducive to the learner, to the child, will take time to move. But once it moves, nobody will be able to stop it. And that is what we need to focus on. Right? People are going to say, moving this mountain is going to take us ages and all that stuff. But we have to start.
And I think there has been quite a few projects in India. For example, if I can recall, the Hosangabad Science Teachers Program that was done for 30 years, which was initiated first of all with 16 schools, then it spread across the entire state, reaching out to more than 300 schools and 60,000 students. So somehow do you think that, as you said, that things needs to start from ground up? Do you think a right balance with the state government or the local government bodies is important to take some kind of an idea forward? Otherwise, there can be a lot of difficulties. एक तो उसको sustain कैसे करना है, how to scale it up, how to take it to wider children communities. All these things will happen unless you have some kind of a support.
I do agree. Okay. Now here though, what people are looking for is proof. Everybody asks, what is the proof? Correct? And people will trust proof rather than just talk. Unless the talk is done by somebody high up in the government or in a public office or somebody which is a popular celebrity figure, so on. But for people who are at the grassroots level, nobody is willing to listen to them unless there is some proof. So I have set up some guidelines even for our learning space for Able, is that we will start, and after 3 years, we will appoint 2 teams, management teams, who will grow with this concept, whom the current leaders will train. And from those 2 management teams, after 5 years, one team will stay where we are. The second team will start a new space. Okay. Then in this space, again, we will have 2 teams. In the new space, we will train new teams. And then those 2 will start. So then first will be 5 years, the second and third might be every 3 years and so on. So the vision right now is that in 20 years, we want this thing to grow to 2 million children. Right? So the start is slow, but the growth is exponential. That is what it is. Now people want to just reach the summit from day one. And that is harming. Just that thinking is harming people. So we have to be able to be comfortable with this slow growth, which then becomes exponential. And here I want to state something. People want certainty, right? They ask me, what will be the curriculum? And I said, no, the child is going to decide the curriculum. But there is this, I've got these 3 pillars of saying. Number 1 is, the only thing that is certain is uncertainty. If you knew what is going to happen, there is no challenge in life. There is no point in doing it because you know it's going to happen. But because there is uncertainty, we are doing it. We want to know what is going to happen. Correct? The only thing that is permanent is change. You have to keep on changing. Correct? And the only thing that is normal is our abnormality or uniqueness, our diversity. Right? People also know, now we want to make everybody similar. Okay, and here I give another example. We have to shift from equality to balance. Okay, by this what I mean is, if our all 5 fingers were equal, we wouldn't be able to do 90% of the things we are doing. And today, if you see, the world is obsessed with equality, equal pay, equal this, equal that, everything. Correct? While we are all born different. Correct? We are all now, for this finger example, our all 5 fingers are different, but they are balanced. Nature is all about balance. Okay? And balance is more important. That's why balance is more important than equality. Okay? We need to focus on that. And that is where we need to go.
And what is your take on visual medium of learning? I mean, things are changing fast. We know children are taking up screens. But yes, there are a lot of different forms of visual learning as well. What is your take on that?
So here I am going to give a reference to a book titled Being Digital. It is by Nicholas Negroponte. Nicholas Negroponte was the director of Media Labs at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And he published this book, Being Digital, in text form. Okay, so he was asked, you're talking about being digital. Why is this book published in text form? You could have made it into a video, correct? So he explained. When somebody reads the text, everybody visualizes the text differently, correct? Based on their life experiences. Not even his life experience or anybody's life experience. So if you were to take that visual creativity away, what is left? Correct? So all this visual media, that's the reason I said there is no television in my farm. Okay? Now that does not mean that visual media is bad. There are a lot of good things and different things.
Maybe the process is good than the end product.
Correct? So today if you see, all news that is watched most by the people is breaking news. And it does exactly what it says. It breaks people. I would rather have making news, which makes people. And if you have to do making news, nobody will watch it. Correct? There is I don't remember, I'm not too conversant with the Indian music scene now, but there is somebody by the name of Honey Singh or somebody, right? He's made some millions of records and all that stuff. So he was asked one time, and if somebody told me his music is sort of something that people will like, but it does not have meaning or anything like that. So he was asked, he said, once I made a CD, which was exactly what I want, what I love to do. It only sold 350 CDs. Correct? So, those are the things. The same is true with visual media. Correct? I'll tell you. I was at a friend's place. His daughter was 4 years old. And his niece, his sister-in-law's daughter, 18 months. She had just learned to talk. And these two, I love observing children. I just love it. That's why I'm trying to create this thing. So there is this 4-year-old and this 18-month-old. She's able to talk because she has learned talking it. And they were discussing something. And this 18-month-old, 1.5-year-old, is telling the 4-year-old, can you see if we can find it on YouTube? I was opened my eyes thinking, what the heck, man? This kid is trying to look at open. And as I mentioned about the book from Nicholas Negroponte, by spoon feeding, we are significantly limiting their creativity. Right? In nature, when you're going, you're not going to go with a mobile phone and try to see things. You're going to see the things with the naked eye. How does the ant move? Correct? There is an end to that line of ants and so on. How do they live? All those things. Butterflies, how do they move around? The flowers, how do they grow? All these things are important. And I'll give you an example. This is from my farm. At one time, I had 650 banana plants. Okay, and I remember the first time in my life I saw a banana flower. I was so curious that I used to go and see that flower every day just to see how much more it has grown. Okay. Then after that, I had a volunteer from Venice in Italy. His father has a chain of 4 fruit stores in Venice. Correct? And the first thing he did when he came to my farm is he saw the banana plant, banana bunch on the plant. He clicked a photograph and he sent it to his father because he has been selling bananas all his life. But he doesn't know how a banana grows and how it looks on a plant. Correct? Somebody told me in Mumbai, if you go and ask the kids, where do you get the rice from? They'll tell you it comes from a factory. Correct? So it is very important, and that's why I said learning by doing, that we expose our children to visual media for their eyes, not from these devices, not from devices. They can see visual media, means see the nature visually and experience. So it has a place. I'm not saying it's one or the other. It has to be one and the other. And there is an appropriateness for everything. So that is important. What will the children from Abel grow up to be? Okay. And I tell them 3 things. They'll grow up to be happy, healthy, and harmonious. Correct? So what does that mean? So today there is somebody who's a millionaire. Correct? But he's unhappy. I just have 1 million. See that fellow, he has 10 million. So despite having 1 million, he's unhappy. Correct? What's the point? Second, to get to 10 million, he is working 16 hours a day. He's skipping breakfast, lunch or dinner. He's eating at odd times, odd stuff. No sleep. He's unhealthy. Correct? He's popping pills by the hour. Correct? And number 3, anybody who is coming in his way of getting from 1 million to 10 million, he's kicking them. So everybody hates this fellow. He's not harmonious. What is the point of living that life? Correct? So we are saying for our children, whether they are a janitor or a president, we want them to be happy, healthy and harmonious. They don't have to say, I want to grow up to be a doctor or engineer or lawyer or something, or an actor, somebody famous, right? So richness and fame are sort of the addictions of the environment today. We want our children to be addicted to happiness, health, and harmony, then money does not matter. Okay? And then here I want to give one more example. Now this example is for the community. Okay? This is a true life thing. Some decades ago, a person bought in US, a person bought an entire island. He was so rich, right? He was a tycoon. So he then threw a party for the opening of that island. The who's who was there, and he also invited some journalists to attend that opening ceremony. And I don't remember the names of these two journalists, but it's a real life incident. So I read it in Reader's Digest at that time. And let us say their name is Tom and John. So Tom is telling John, see how much he has, referring to the tycoon, see how much he has. To which John responds, he will never have something that I have. Okay? And Tom is intrigued. I mean, what has this fellow got? You are just a journalist, John. What have you got? Something that he will never have. He says, what? John answers in one word, enough. Okay? So the condition that we have put for our community, for somebody to join the community, is they should have reached the enough point. You see, if you don't have enough, don't come. Because it corrupts people. If you don't have enough, that desire to have more corrupts people. And that corruption spreads. It doesn't stop there. And we don't want such people in the community. We're just saying, you have enough, come. You don't have enough, don't come. We are not forcing anybody to come into that way. And same way, we want our children to feel that if you are happy, healthy and harmonious, you have enough. You don't need anything more. You think about it, what more do you need? So those are the sort of, and then as I said, we want our children to be entrepreneurs and problem solvers. Correct? We want them to solve problems like climate change. Correct? These are not easy problems to solve. Hunger and things that matter. And that is where the policy will also come in. So the current world is engrossed and occupied by things that don't matter in the long run. And it is only our children, we want them to grow up to focus on problems, solving which will matter in the long run. And trying to do this fast is going against the very aim of the project, a very aim of nature. Correct? When you say, like there is a humorous quote. I am an atheist, thank God. Correct? And the other one is, God give me patience, but hurry. So we want to have patience. So we want children to grow up with these sort of ideals. And that is why I said go with the flow. If we are trying to preach go with the flow, then we must practice grow with the flow.
Yeah, so just like, all the discussion on education. So do you have any kind of idea of ideal society? Or, what's your idea of a society?
I don't call it society, I call it a community. We have to, the future of the world depends on communities. Okay? Communities of like-minded people. So I'll give you an example, like this able community that we are trying to set up. And in that, our community's focus is learning and creating a future generation that is more in harmony with nature. That is our entire focus. I have a friend who has started another community. Okay? His community is saying only vegans can become members of this community, which is also good. There's nothing wrong in it. Correct? There could be another community that is starting and they could say, okay, we are not focusing on learning, because there's a community that I was a member of. That was not focused on learning, and they asked me to join them, so because I was focused on learning. And then they suddenly decided that we are a group of retirees who are starting the community. We will only work for half a day and the rest half of the day we will play golf. And I said, sorry, I don't want to be a member of that community. But there are communities like that too, correct? So there are various communities of like-minded people, and that is the future, correct? So long as that community respects nature and does things that helps nature. That is, working with nature is key. That is one. Second is that sociocracy, the principle that I have explained, can only work in a social environment, which is a community where everyone knows the other. Correct. So applying sociocracy to a democratic setup like India is nobody knows. Like you're electing a prime minister, but you don't know the prime minister, nor does the prime minister know you, and it's not practical. It's not. So I'm not blaming that it's there, but to make something viable, we have to start with communities, and the communities have to flourish, and they then just scale up at that level. But the future isn't going. So the future world that I see and I would like to see is based on communities. When the internet came up, that time, that was 1993 when it first started becoming public, is we created a concept called communities of interest, correct? Which means that the people could be anywhere in the world, which is happening today, right? But they are together based on their interest, common interest, right? So, now community of interest is a virtual concept, correct? Which can also be there, But the community that I am describing, communities of like-minded people, is a physical concept where people are living together. And no matter you talk about artificial intelligence or all those things, at the end of the day, it is people who make a society. And so long as we respect and encourage the people to grow along with other people and with nature, those ideas will not survive.
And as a scientist, as a mentor, as you said, you like to mentor others. Where do you see yourself 5 years or 10 years down the line?
Okay. So I always have a 25-year vision. That's part of my being a scientist. So I am hoping that we will start this community next year, 2024. And it will take us 5 years to get to the basic stage, correct? And that is because I have this concept of the development of a team. Everything is team-based, correct? When you develop a team, there are 5 stages of a team development. First is forming. You form the team, correct? Then is called warming. So like you're married and then warming is like the honeymoon. Everything is going hunky-dory and it's great. Then suddenly you start realizing each other's limitations. So that is called storming, correct? And that is natural. You can't stop. Like they say, conflict is unavoidable, but violence isn't. So we will have conflicts, and we need to create space for addressing conflict. Otherwise, you cannot survive. Everything, even in nature, correct? You can see that if you have a coconut tree and it is among coconut trees, the coconut trees that grows later will try to go higher than the previous coconut trees because it is fighting for light, correct? So it's natural. Storming is natural. Then in storming, what happens is we realize each other's boundaries, correct? And once you realize each other's boundaries, then you know that, don't with so-and-so, don't talk about this because that person, it triggers that person. There's nothing wrong here, but that person is sensitive to certain things. You realize each other's sensitivities and you learn to live with within those sensitivities. So that is known as norming. So you have forming, warming, storming, norming, and then you're performing. Then you start performing, correct? So that is where we need to get to. We need to get to these stages to performing. So I see that I have made it very clear to the team, to the members, it will take us 3 years to get to norming stage, not even performing. Okay? There's so many people, correct? The community vision that is there right now will be 800 people. We will not go beyond 800, including 300 learners.
And these 800 people will stay at Sapna Ranch?
No, we have created a new space. It's going to be about a 200-acre space, close to Sapna, within 60 kilometers of Sapna Ranch, of which we already bought 165 acres. So we'll finally have 200-acre space. It's a big project. It has to. You have to have space. Like if you look at Krishnamurti schools today, 400, 450 acres each place is having. You look at any of the universities today, 200 acres plus. So a learning space needs a lot of space. Correct from that. So I would probably be 20 years with this. And as I said, I want to hand over most of the things. So after 10 years, I'll mainly be in a consultant role. But my other passion is something called restorative justice. Okay, it is still not mainstream, but for humanity to move forward, it is important that the justice system is reformed. So this whole project EBEL is about reforming the education system, the learning space. The restorative justice thing, I've not shared this with many people, but since you asked, I thought let me answer it. Restorative justice is about justice taking care of people who are hurt. Okay. Now today, if a person is sick, what do? Do you put him in jail? No. You take him to a hospital. You try to heal him. Correct? Now, we look at physical illness today. But also there is a mental illness, there is an emotional illness, there is a psychological illness, which we are not addressing. Correct? We are not born criminals. Everybody is born to do good, to help others. That is how we are born. But because of the experiences while growing up, people's views and perspectives of what is right changes. Correct? So if a person is born poor and things like that, then the person thinks and the person steals once and gets away with it and lives a good life without having to work hard. That's good for that person, and the person grows up that way. And today's criminal system, justice system, will put that person behind bars without taking the time and trouble to understand what made the person who he or she is. Correct? So instead of putting them behind bars, we should be finding their root cause. Correct? Like a doctor tries to do a diagnosis. Now, the justice system is not equipped to do diagnosis. So that is where my focus is going to be after this, if I live longer than that, is to focus on diagnosing what has caused the person to do whatever that person did to go wrong with the justice system. Correct? At that level. And here there is a quote by Martin Luther King, the civil rights activist in US. He said, Hitler never did anything illegal. He played by the rules of Germany, prevailing in Germany at that time. Correct? So just because somebody is living within the justice system doesn't mean that the person is good. Correct? It's all relative. And that is why justice system needs a reform. But most importantly, it needs to understand and treat people who have broken the rules. Maybe the rules themselves were wrong. Correct? There are so many people who have been put on death row that have later been found out to be innocent. Correct? So all those things are there. But mainly, the focus is on restorative justice. And that is what my focus is going to be. By that time, I think I'll be towards the last decade of my life or whatever. But that will give me a lot of satisfaction. And I know that is a very tough thing to do. Correct? Being a scientist, I don't shy away from tough things. Actually, I like challenges. Correct? There were so many projects that I did, they told me categorically, it cannot be done. Right? That gave me even more determination. I will do it and show it to you. So this is something very similar. But restorative justice is on my mind. I'm even talking with lawyers and all this thing today, and they are not in the same place. They are trying to justify the current justice system, and that is because it is giving them their salary, right? Restorative justice will not give them their salary. Here I want to give one example. In China, there is a community that has a doctor, correct? They have to make a certain payment every month to that doctor, okay, to keep that society, that community healthy. But if any family from that community becomes sick, they stop paying that due to the doctor, which means the doctor has to cure that family in order to get their money back. Right? You understand? So we have to create a system which rewards. Correct? Because everything is based on reward. Okay? Which rewards people being good. Correct? So you don't put that. Today there are so many people committing crime so that they can get free food in jail. Right? In US, they are committing crime so that they can get a warm bed to sleep on because it's cold there outside. Right? So it is rewarding the wrong kind of behavior. Right? And therefore, you have to create a system that rewards good behavior. Correct? Now, there is a concept, because again in learning, I try to apply this, because I took a 3 months training course on training dogs, because I rescue dogs. And in that, there was one very important concept which I apply to everything. It is called positive response. Okay, what does that mean? Is that, like I said, mistakes should not be punished. Right? Same way, if a dog is doing something wrong, you don't punish that behavior, but you don't reward that behavior either. Okay. But if the dog is doing something good, you reward that behavior. You give it a treat. Like for Hero, the dog. If he was not doing something, then Chaitanya would give him a treat. And he would then sit there for some time and so on. So it's called positive response. That is how dolphins are also trained, by positive response. So we have to we have to reward good behavior. Correct? And today the system is lacking. Correct? While they are punishing bad behavior, they are not rewarding good behavior either. Correct? So we have to reward good behavior and ignore bad behavior. When I say ignore bad behavior, means we have to incentivize that person to demonstrate good behavior which we reward. So it is not that we let that person get away with bad behavior, but we have to sort of work on that. And that is a concept.